The monarchy didn't whisper back, it sliced back. Because when Meghan Markle lit the fuse with a veiled threat about a buried Balearic Islands secret, she expected panic, fear, maybe even surrender. But what she got instead was Princess Anne, standing colder than ice, dismantling her narrative piece by piece, without raising her voice, without breaking posture, without blinking. And insiders say this wasn't just a defense. This was a warning shot that echoed across palaces, courtrooms, and private yachts scattered across Europe. 6 days. That's all it took. 6 days after Buckingham Palace dropped its most brutally direct public statement in years, Princess Anne walked into Marlborough House with the calm of someone who already knew the war was over. No theatrics, no trembling outrage, just quiet devastation delivered with surgical precision. The kind that doesn't explode, it erases. Those inside that closed-door media summit say the temperature in the room shifted the moment she spoke, because Anne wasn't reacting. She was confirming what many already suspected, that Meghan Markle's empire wasn't being attacked. It was collapsing under the weight of its own design, and Meghan knew it. Because just days earlier, on February 10, Meghan had released that now infamous pre-recorded message, her voice steady, her tone defiant, but her words dripping with implication. She didn't accuse directly, she didn't name names, but she didn't need to. She talked about power, about erasure, about secrets buried in the summer of 2016 in the Balearic Islands. And that one reference detonated like a bomb across royal intelligence circles. Because those weren't just random coordinates, those were pressure points, and everyone understood exactly who she wanted the world to look at: Prince William. It was blackmail disguised as victimhood. Or at least, that's how palace insiders interpreted it. But Meghan miscalculated one thing. She thought fear would spread faster than truth. Within hours, countermeasures began moving silently behind palace walls. No dramatic press conferences, no emotional denials, just files, timelines, evidence. Prince James of Edinburgh, the quiet operator few outside royal corridors ever talked about, stepped forward like a ghost taking control of a battlefield. He convened emergency briefings, activated digital forensic reviews, and most devastating of all, authorized the release of William's full UN travel itinerary from 2016. The receipts were undeniable. William wasn't anywhere near those Balearic waters. He was in Nairobi, standing before global diplomats, miles away from the scandal Meghan had tried to resurrect. And just like that, her threat collapsed. But the real destruction came next, because when Princess Anne was asked directly about Meghan's crumbling brand deals, revoked licenses, and global rejections, she didn't defend the monarchy. She didn't attack Meghan personally. She simply exposed the truth hiding beneath the illusion. She said Meghan's brand was built on positivity and accessibility, but it could never exist without royal varnish. And when she said that, insiders say the room froze, because everyone understood what she meant. Meghan's independence was never fully independent. Her power came from proximity. Her credibility came from association. And once that association cracked, everything else began to rot. Canada began pulling licenses. France issued quiet non-renewal orders. The UAE banned her luxury wellness products outright. Singapore and Japan stripped her fragrance lines from shelves. One by one, the empire she had built on influence started disintegrating in real time. And the most devastating part? None of it required public retaliation from the palace. The world was rejecting her on its own. Princess Anne didn't celebrate it. She simply acknowledged it. She said businesses invest in longevity, not disruption. That a brand rooted in controversy will always rot from the inside. And insiders say that sentence alone destroyed whatever leverage Meghan thought she had left. Because Anne wasn't defending the crown, she was separating it. Then came the leak. Images from 2016 surfaced suddenly. Grainy, disturbing, impossible to ignore. Prince Andrew aboard a yacht near Mallorca, surrounded by shadowy foreign intermediaries and offshore figures tied to obscure foundations. The timing was explosive. The implication even worse. But what made it catastrophic was what appeared in the blurred background. Meghan Markle. Years before her royal marriage. Years before her official entry into the family she would later accuse. And when Princess Anne was confronted with those images, she didn't flinch. She said it wasn't surprising when old ghosts resurfaced. But she made one thing brutally clear. The crown would not absorb the sins of individuals who tried to bury their own past. It was distancing, pure and deliberate, not emotional, not defensive, just final. Behind the scenes, Prince James escalated containment operations even further. His task force traced financial trails connected to the yacht's sponsoring foundation, offshore accounts, shell entities, quiet transfers buried years earlier, the kind of institutional toxins that don't destroy from the outside but infect from within, and James moved quickly, isolating them before they could spread. Princess Anne watched it unfold without panic, without noise, because this wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. Meanwhile, Meghan's legal weapon, Clause 7, began revealing its true purpose. Buried deep within her private marriage agreement, it gave her unilateral control over public narratives surrounding their relationship. It wasn't just protection, it was leverage. It allowed her team to shape perception, silence opposition, and position her as the abandoned outsider fighting an oppressive machine. But Anne saw through it instantly. She privately warned that this wasn't freedom of speech. It was weaponized narrative laundering. And when she said that, insiders knew the monarchy had crossed a psychological threshold. They weren't negotiating anymore. They were disengaging because the palace understood something Meghan didn't. Power isn't loud. Power doesn't chase. Power waits. And while Meghan issued emotional warnings and cryptic threats, the monarchy responded with silence, evidence, and distance. The most dangerous combination imaginable. By the time Princess Anne delivered her final internal message that morning, the outcome was already sealed. She didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She simply reminded everyone of one truth the crown had survived by for centuries. Redemption is private. Consequences are public. And for the first time since Meghan fired her opening shot, it became clear that this wasn't a battle between Meghan and the monarchy. It was a battle between illusion and permanence. And permanence was winning. But what Meghan didn't realize, what she couldn't control, was the timing of the folder that appeared at exactly 9:43 a.m. It wasn't announced. It wasn't teased. It simply materialized across encrypted whistleblower platforms like a ghost finally stepping into the light. Its label was chilling in its simplicity. Balearic Archive 2016. And within minutes, the internet began devouring its contents with the hunger of a world desperate for truth, scandal, and confirmation of its darkest suspicions. The photographs inside weren't polished. They weren't flattering. They were raw, grainy fragments of a moment that had been buried for nearly a decade. Prince Andrew smiling carelessly aboard a luxury yacht, foreign intermediaries lounging beside him, offshore financiers, men whose names appeared in audit trails and sealed investigations. And then there she was, Meghan Markle, not center stage, not posing, but present, watching, existing inside a moment she had never publicly acknowledged. And suddenly, everything she had implied, the threats, the warnings, the accusations, started folding inward on itself like a collapsing star. Because the archive didn't expose William, it exposed proximity, hers. The palace didn't scramble. That's what shocked everyone. There were no frantic denials, no emergency defenses, because Princess Anne had already anticipated the possibility. She understood something fundamental about scandals: they feed on reaction, and Anne refused to feed it. Instead, she delivered the coldest form of response possible: strategic disengagement. When reporters pressed her about the Balearic images, she didn't defend Andrew. She didn't defend Meghan. She defended only the institution. She said the past has a way of returning when people spend years trying to outrun it. She said the monarchy would not explain secrets it did not create, and that one sentence did something devastating. It removed the crown from the narrative entirely. It left Meghan alone with her own timeline. Meanwhile, Prince James moved like a shadow sealing every crack before the storm could enter. He activated the Silent Integrity Task Force, an internal unit few even knew existed. Their mission wasn't public relations, it was sterilization. Financial trails were traced, offshore charities audited, legal firewalls erected around vulnerable members of the family, every potential liability isolated and contained. Insiders described his approach as mercilessly calm. He didn't perform damage control. He erased the pathways through which damage could spread. And Princess Anne watched her son operate with the quiet satisfaction of someone witnessing the next generation enforce survival. But Meghan's world was not stabilizing, it was hemorrhaging. Netflix froze her production slate. Luxury partners quietly withdrew. Sponsors stopped returning calls. Foundations suspended collaborations. Her empire wasn't exploding in one dramatic collapse. It was suffocating slowly, oxygen being withdrawn one partnership at a time. And insiders say that's when panic began creeping into her inner circle, because she had built her strategy on leverage, on narrative control, on the assumption that the monarchy would always be forced to defend itself publicly. But Princess Anne changed the rules entirely. She refused to defend. She refused to engage. She simply stepped aside and allowed Meghan's contradictions to speak for themselves. At the center of it all sat Clause 7. That single line buried deep inside her marriage agreement had once been her greatest weapon. It gave her the power to shape perception, to present herself as the abandoned victim home to position Harry as unstable, absent, compromised. And for a moment, it worked. Media narratives bent. Public sympathy flickered. But Clause 7 had a fatal weakness. It depended on belief, and belief is fragile. Once doubt entered the equation, once images surfaced, once timelines clashed, once evidence contradicted implication, the clause lost its psychological force. It became not a shield, but a spotlight. And Harry was unraveling. His silence turned erratic. His private frustrations leaked into fragments, deleted posts, whispered recordings, emotional outbursts that revealed a man trapped between loyalty and realization. He had once believed Meghan was fighting beside him. Now, insiders say he began questioning whether she had been positioning herself all along, because every new revelation seemed to protect her narrative while isolating him further. The monarchy wasn't attacking him, it was surviving him. Princess Anne saw it clearly. She understood that emotional warfare is won not through confrontation, but through endurance. When she finally stepped before the press inside Windsor Court, the room fell silent before she even spoke. She didn't perform outrage, she didn't dramatize betrayal, she simply announced clarity. She acknowledged Andrew's disgrace without hesitation, making it clear the institution had already severed itself from his actions. She addressed Meghan's collapsing brand not with anger, but with inevitability. She said trust isn't inherited, it's earned. She said novelty fades, but character remains. And with that, she dismantled the foundation upon which Meghan's independence had been constructed. It wasn't revenge. It was separation, the final institutional distancing. And the most devastating moment came when she praised Prince James. Not loudly, not emotionally, but deliberately. She said he had shown spine, that he had protected the throne not through spectacle, but through quiet enforcement of standards. Insiders say that praise wasn't just maternal pride, it was succession signaling. The monarchy wasn't clinging to old defenses. It was evolving, hardening. By evening, the world had shifted. Headlines stopped asking whether the monarchy would survive Meghan's accusations. They started asking whether Meghan would survive the truth. Her threats about Balearic secrets had backfired catastrophically, because instead of exposing the crown, they exposed her proximity to the very shadows she had tried to weaponize. Instead of forcing institutional collapse, she triggered institutional purification. Princess Anne delivered one final message internally that echoed like a closing door. The monarchy would not rescue those who traded legacy for leverage. No drama, no spectacle, just consequence. And as the storm finally settled, one reality stood undeniable and irreversible. Meghan Markle hadn't destroyed the monarchy. She had forced it to reveal how untouchable it truly was.